Well, good afternoon to all of you attending this webinar with the title Academia, Industry Relationship, Knowledge and Technology Transfer. This is the third webinar of the series Prime Talks on Engineering Innovation, which is an initiative of the Field Prime program that aims to contribute to strengthen the relationship between Field and the industry. Well, I must confess that I'm double honored to be the moderator of this section. First, because I'm replacing the director of Field, who is usually sharing these webinars. And secondly, and most importantly, because I have the privilege to have two distinguished guests from the industry, to whom, on behalf of the director of Field, I thank for accepting this challenge. Let me now introduce our two guests. Filipe Gaspar is the Chief Technology Officer at Ovion, one of the most innovative companies in Portugal, and he will act as the main presenter. Pedro Araujo is the CEO of Advanced Cyclone Systems, a technological company with a strong DNA of Field, and he will act as the main presenter, a main discussant, sorry. And further details about our guests and their companies are available on the Field Prime website. As you are all aware, the main topic of this talk will be collaborative research and its impacts in both companies and universities. The webinar is divided in three main parts. We'll start by a 20-minute presentation by Dr. Filipe Gaspar. Then we'll have a short presentation with a discussion and comments from Pedro Araujo. And finally, we'll have some room for a few questions from the audience. I ask all the attendees that are on the YouTube channel to use the chat tool to put their questions during this session. But, I think we can now start. So, Dr. Filipe Gaspar, I will not say the floor, but in this case, the screen is yours. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me try to share my screen and just confirm that you are seeing the first slide.
We are seeing what you are presenting.
Okay, and can you hear me well?
Yes.
Perfectly. Very good.
Okay. So first of all, let me thank you to Philip and to my dear colleagues, Pedro and Romualdo, from ACS for the invitation to be here. And I will take this opportunity to let you know a little bit about Ovion and our innovative nature. And to me, innovation is best described by the ability to convert ideas, but also knowledge, into value. And in this presentation, I will discuss some of the most important drivers of innovation that we are using at Ovion. So without further ado, so Ovion is a science-based company providing services and products for the pharmaceutical industry. We do not invent new drugs, so that is the job of our clients, but we develop the processes to produce those drugs, and then we manufacture them once they become approved. So in other words, we are behind many of these innovative drugs, as I will show you in a minute. And therefore, it's very important to have this innovative character. Last year, we celebrated our 60 years, which is a very respectable age. And I think it shows our resilience and our endurance in the industry. We are also family owned. And one of the advantages of a privately held company is that not only we have a stable management, but we can plan in the midterm. So we are not in such a pressure to show quarterly results, and therefore we can plan innovation and what we're going to do with a broader view. Our customers range from small to large biotechs, to virtual pharma, to the largest pharma companies that you have heard, like Pfizer, the Sanofi, the Janssens, but also the generic pharma, where we provide some of our generic products, which were on the genesis of the company. Our values, which are described here, are supported in elevated ethics, in innovation, and in our commitment to deliver. This slide shows where we are present. So in Europe, we have the largest plant here in Loures, and the R&D labs in Lisbon. But we also have plants in Ireland, in Macau, and in New Jersey. And in all these plants, we do R&D, and in some of them we do R&D, Portugal and New Jersey, and in all of them we do commercial manufacturing as well. You can also see some of the key figures. So we are almost 2,000 people, team members. We have a vast number of products, and this is very important because despite our relatively small size when we compare ourselves with the big pharma companies, we have in our portfolio a number of projects and products that give us a lot of experience in developing those products and then manufacturing them. Also, we are a company that sells around $300 million. We've been growing at about 10% for the last 15 years. And this sustained growth is also a good demonstration of how resilient and innovative we are, because it's in the vast majority just organic growth. About 11 years ago, we met all the senior people in the company to discuss and agree on what would be our BHAG. And BHAG is the big, hairy, audacious goal. And we look at our core values and set that ambition with a time frame of 20 years. And this is described here. So to become the #1 innovative integrated provider to the global industry by 2028. And what I really like in our goal, and I believe is very inspiring, is that we didn't aim to be the biggest or the richest or the most affordable or the most profitable company, but instead we choose to be the most innovative company in the areas that we decide to enter. And for that, obviously, we need to have the right capacity of the best technology, but also combine that with the talent and knowledge that offers exceptional solutions to our customers. And the biggest metric of our innovative nature is described in this busy chart, but I'll try to facilitate your life. So what you are seeing in the blue line is the number of approvals by the Food and Drug Administration, so the regulator in the US, of new drugs per year. And what you see in the red line is the number of these drugs where Ovion was behind, both in terms of development, but also in terms of the commercial manufacturing. So we can calculate by the ratio of these two what is our share in participation of these new drugs. And you can see in these time periods that I show in the table below that we've been steadily growing from 1%, 2%, 3%. And we are hoping in these next 3 years to actually reach 4%. But bear in mind that we are in a very fragmented industry where the biggest player in terms of providing services to the pharmaceutical industry is about, let's say, less than 2% of the market. So when we compare our actually share of the market with our share of the new drugs, we can calculate what I call a disproportionality level of innovation in the company. And this is what I show in red, and this is what I follow as a metric to become the most innovative company in the world. So very quickly, in terms of the drivers of innovation, one key driver of this innovation is the partnerships that we are establishing with the academia. And I would highlight one of these programs, which we call Ovion Research Program. And we've been performing it. We established this program in 2009. And basically it consists of studentships, both PhDs, master students, and traineeships. The students work partially at Ovion and partially at the institutions, and they are also co-supervised by Ovion scientists. The vast majority of these programs is in applied research, and I call it applied research because it's in key strategic areas of Ovion and in topics that we can convert into application in a very fast pace. But there is space also for more disruptive innovation, but I have to confess that we have been mostly focusing on applied research. It's a program that we use also to foster diversity, diversity in terms of the nationality of the students. So we have about 10 different students from different nationalities. We have also a great number of academic institutions, and this diversity is a great promoter of innovation. It's also a program that links our scientists, which in their day-to-day work do mostly development work. But this is a program that allows them to be in touch with state-of-the-art research through these studentships and the relationships with the institutions. Is also an important source of talent, and I'll show you some figures later on this. So overall, it's an incredible, powerful program. Here you can see the strategic areas where these studentships have been focused. Not surprisingly, this is a cumulative view, but the vast majorities of the programs have been in chemistry, particle engineering, inhalation, and in analytical development, which support all these areas. But in recent years, we have opened new areas of focus, and these include, for example, biopharmaceuticals, continuous processing, and the digital transformation. So this is continuously renewed, both the topics and also the collaborations we do with the industry, with the academia. In this slide, it shows an evolution over time. And you can see that the program intensified over these 10 years or more. At the moment, we are at a level that I think it's very well balanced with the scientific numbers at Ovion. So for the last 2 years, and this year was actually a bit lower than is shown here, mainly due to COVID and the implications of it. But I think it's very well balanced with our workforce. You can see also here what is the fate of the students that have already completed their degrees. And almost 50% of these students ended up as Ovion scientists. And that is, as I mentioned before, a tremendous source of highly qualified talent. And if we look, for example, at the PhD students, and these are obviously training programs that take 3-4 years, sometimes a little bit more, and where the company invests even more in the student and in the program, the retention is almost 2/3. So, and this is very, very positive in our view. But our collaboration with the academia is not only through studentships. In cases where we need faster solutions to problems that we cannot solve by ourselves in these longer term products, we have teamed up with the academia. An example of this is our 9° West program, which was launched 3 years ago and is about to be concluded, and is a program where we establish collaborations with different consortiums to solve specific problems that we were looking for solutions. In this particular program, Ovion invests several million euros, and one of them was actually led by Philip, which is project 1 that I mentioned here. So it's a bit horses for courses. In some cases where we need a more pragmatic approach, we go directly to the professors or to the postdoc students for a faster solution. In other cases, we can afford to develop, let's say, longer term projects. But the drivers of innovation is not just through partnerships with academia. An important aspect is also partnerships with the industry, and very often local industry that is very close to us. And I won't give many examples here, but I would like to take the opportunity to have here Pedro Araujo and Romualdo Salcedo from Advanced Cyclone Systems to give that example. And before I mention that, I would start by saying that Ovion is mostly recognized in the world as the leading company in pharmaceutical spray dryer. And this is something that we have acquired over 15 years, a very arduous work. We built a lot of assets in all our sites. We have the greatest portfolio in terms of R&D, but also in terms of commercial products. And we have an end-to-end understanding of the technologies and the products produced, namely by mathematical models. The technology, which is simply represented here, consists in feeding a solution that contains the pharmaceutical drug into a drying chamber, where it is finely atomized, and then these small droplets are immediately dried. So this is flash drying, and converted into a powder that needs to be collected through a cyclone. So the cyclone here represents a very important attribute in terms of the yield of the process. And the case study I'm presenting here is actually one of the first units that we bought from ACS. We had a product that today is a very successful commercial product. And in our standard cyclone unit, we were having yields of 83%. So we approach ACS, and I copy this part here in the bottom because it really surprised me, the precision of their proposal. So they actually committed with an efficiency of 94%, plus or minus 2. And I was astonished how this young company could be so bullish about these numbers. But the fact is that we built a cyclone, we installed it, we qualified, and we tested, and the yield was actually 96%. So very remarkable. From that moment onwards, our relationship grew tremendously, and I guess most of our units today, almost sure about that, use cyclones from Advanced Cyclone Systems. So the world's most efficient cyclones, and at our footstep, we would imagine, right? So sometimes you don't need to look much further to have a solution for your problems. And I'm very thankful for RCS for all the work. Finally, I would like also to have a word in another tool, which I think is very, very important in converting knowledge into value. And this is knowledge management, is the need to avoid reinventing the wheel. As I mentioned before, we run at any moment in time in R&D about 100 projects. And this gives us the opportunity to systemize our methods, to refine our workflows, to create very broad databases, and even in many cases to create very robust models that prevent us to do trial and error. So we put in place a knowledge management system, and I think every organization will have its own recipe for that, but our is split in 3 different levels. The most basic is the description of workflows. So all groups within R&D look at their routine activities and they describe it in terms of workflows, in terms of decision trees, so that newcomers, new scientists can learn from that. But parallel to that, or on top of that, you can create very robust databases. And on top of that, you can even create very powerful models, as the example I'm showing here, that basically prevent you from doing a tremendous number of experimentation by simulating the conditions that we expect to have and then test only what we think are the best conditions. So trial and error is not an option today to be a competitive company like Ovion. And we are using modeling, let's say, from molecular stage to company scale, using all the different types of modeling as appropriate. Finally, and probably most importantly, is an investment in highly qualified and diverse talent. What you see here on the left is the number of team members in the organization holding a PhD degree. Today is much more than 100. I don't have the exact figure, but I know that only in R&D in Portugal, we are about 70 team members with a PhD degree. And it's important not only that investment in qualification, but also in the diversity. When I started about 15 years ago, most of us were just chemists and chemical engineers. And today we've added to every discipline in the company a broader background in terms of science. And this is very important for innovation because it's very often in the interface of knowledge that progress occurs. But diversity is not just in terms of technical aspects, it's also cultural diversity. We promote it through hiring, we promote it through the Ovion research program, and also rotation of team members from site to site. So in a final word, I think we continuously nurture innovation within the company. There is not a perfect recipe for innovation, and we continue to learn as we grow. But I think this has been a very successful path. These collaborations and these drivers that I mentioned to you, and I hope I could somehow contribute to this discussion. So thank you so much, and looking forward to any questions.
Okay, well, thank you, Filipe, for your very interesting and comprehensive presentation and challenging. It's not my role to do the comments. I will now give the screen to Pedro. So the screen is yours, so you can share your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Are you seeing everything? It's okay. My voice too?
Yes, it's perfect. Can see you and can listen to you very well.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for your words also, Filipe, and thank you all that I have the opportunity to be here. So, well, before I place some questions to Filipe Gaspar regarding his presentation, I will take the opportunity to tell you a little bit about advanced cyclone systems, considering that OVION and ACS have been working together since our foundation. And I find that it can be interesting, especially for students who are attending this webinar, to have a closer look on how ACS was born and what was the role of OVION right from the beginning and how the collaboration evolved. So here is ACS at a glance. So ACS was established in May 2008 by Romualdo Salcedo, professor at Philp, and myself. So I was a former student of engineering, industrial engineering and management, with the support of the Co-High-Tech program, which I will tell you about in a minute. We were also backed by Armilar Venture Partners from the start. So we have 18 employees between Portugal and Brazil, and we have provided over 250 installations in about 35 countries for gas-solid separation. What is enabled us to reach these clients, I think, is a unique scientific knowledge in particle agglomeration. So a very good model that takes into account how the particles cluster, so the clustering effect of particles inside cyclones, and in numerical optimization in close contact, of course, with Philp. So in short, what we can say is that we have a business model that is based on a clearly differentiated market position. We have accurate efficiency prediction capabilities with cyclones, which allow us to have validated first-time installations. So we are not trying out cyclones, as many do. We'll go forward with the project because we can model and also anticipate actually what will go on. And so this is quite important for cyclone design. So what is a cyclone and why is it so important to predict and optimize efficiency? Well, cyclones are metallic objects, so that by its geometry can separate particles from the air. So without any filters, they can do this. So it is actually the dynamics of the air that enters into the cyclone tangentially and spins just like an air cyclone, just like you see, well, the cyclones in the atmosphere, and brings the particles to the bottom. And since the bottom here is closed, the air inverts its trajectory and keeps spinning in a more narrow vortex and going out, leaving the particles in its lower part. So the particles, which in OVION's case are an active pharmaceutical ingredient, discharge to a small container that can then be used for several purposes. So main advantages of cyclones are easy to understand. So they are very robust, they don't have moving parts, no filters, have almost no maintenance. And this has attracted mainly every industry to use them, especially pharmaceuticals, because these devices can be made aseptic, so easily cleanable, not contaminating other products, which is of course very important in these sensitive ingredients. So they are merely irreplaceable in several industries and especially in pharma. So the problem of cyclones is its low efficiency. So the low efficiency for very, very small particulates, especially under 10 micron. And for these ranges, inertial separation is quite difficult. And actually ACS expertise, which started with Romualdo Salcedo at Philp back in the 80s, is to first model how cyclones work, really understanding and forecasting how much is captured and how much is lost, let's say to the atmosphere or to another filter, and then to optimize via numerical optimization. So this is basically what we do. So we try to solve the only problem, the sole problem that cyclones have. So, well, in 2007, I was doing my MBA in Lisbon. I'm from Porto, but I was there in Lisbon and participating in a program called Co-High-Tech. So in a course in the MBA that's called that was called Technology Innovation Management, aiming to evaluate high growth and high value technologies. So I recalled Romualdo technology from the university and proposed him to be evaluated with this CoHiTech tool while I was doing the course. And it actually was selected. And during the program, Romualdo challenged me to found a company with an international focus as long as I would manage it, while he keeping the responsibility for the technical area. And I find that this process was extremely helpful for SEAs to come through. The problem with technologies, as a little bit like Filipe said, is that they are not products. So they are still the outcome of some basic and applied research. But I was lucky enough that the technology was already applied for emissions control, so another industrial use. But we needed more applications. We needed more to sustain value propositions and also to develop a business project. So in fact, throughout the program, we got our first order from Ovion, and that was very nice, our first and very good client. And most importantly, we had just found a new line of business that helped us build a credible business plan and also get funded. So before that, seed capital provided by CoHiTech, and even before the big funding we had before, allowed us to evaluate and demonstrate the value of the technology while we were investigating applications and testing a multi-skilled team. So we were learning a little bit also how to work with each other, which is another problem of young companies. So in 2009, we celebrated an agreement with Philp for the usage of lab and equipment. This has been very, very important for us throughout the years, and which today is materialized in the Prime program. And from the faculty, we could also hire the most talented people still working with us today. After several orders for pharma and fine food companies such as Teva, Merck, or Nestlé, the need for even higher powder collection efficiency led us to create our most efficient cyclone we have, and actually that Ovion also has, and which is, well, this was actually a challenge from a pharma company called Mankind Corporation, so an American company, and thereby the new patented cyclone we developed was called Hurricane MK. So that was the name we gave to the cyclone. So today we have developed many more geometries after we verified that this demand occurs in several other applications. Let's say production of powder flavor for Swiss company Firmenich, for example, milk proteins for Tetra Pak, Euroserum, or Lactalis, or even chemicals for companies such as Johnson Matthey. So this need happens, well, everywhere a little bit in the industry. So a very quick view on our strange products. So you see there one of these monsters. So during these 10 years, we learned really a lot with Ovion, and we were flexible enough to meet its demands. Not only we were some cyclones specially designed for Ovion, but they were also fully equipped with features that we learned that go from clean in place technology. So these things there, so nozzle that can clean the cyclone from inside, to a special heat tracing jacket that maintains the cyclone at a certain temperature, among many other extras. So it was this network collaboration, not only between two companies, but also involving the university and other suppliers such as metal workshops from the north of Portugal, that actually brought these products to life. And I find that this was really, really important. So going back to Ovion, and in my view, well, it is a remarkable example of a company always innovating, improving processes and products to meet demands of clients. Well, these which are actually essential for pharmaceutical companies that serve patients, either through contract manufacturing service, so contract manufacturing services, or manufacturing API products to these pharmaceutical companies. So these pharmaceutical companies then serve the final clients, so the patients, and Filipe can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's more or less this model. And for that, well, core development sustained in core applied research, and core meaning the areas that Filipe told about and that are directly implied in Ovion's activity, like chemistry, particle engineering, inhalation, formulation, etc. And before that, of course, we have basic research, and basic research is definitely more in the academia. But actually, to what the cyclones is concerned, we are talking about another field that by itself takes years of research, in order to come to the right products to fulfill a certain need. And I believe we have helped Ovion to find a shortcut, let's say, to improved processes and achieving a better yield with our cyclones, which otherwise would have been much more difficult, of course, given the fact that it's both not a it's a highly specialized area, but not a core area for Ovion. So, well, going into the questions, Filipe, is it frequent, among other areas inside Ovion, to see these spin-off companies like ACS from the university collaborate with Ovion and providing similar shortcuts to these improved process and products?
Well, I wouldn't say that is very frequent, Pedro. I can remember probably 3 or 4 cases from the top of my head. But I think it's always very intense relationships. So in the sense that these spin-off companies or these almost startups, they have a very positive energy, a great willing to demonstrate their value. So they provide a tremendous quality in terms of interaction. Mm-hmm. So these are very, very important interactions. I wish they were more, there were more, but it's much, much simpler to speak and to develop what we develop with advanced cyclone systems that it would have been, for example, with Fischer Klosterman, which was at the time the other competitor, because there was already a company of a given size, less open to customization, less willing also to learn from experience. So I think I wish there were more. They are very intensive in terms of the attention you need to give, but they are also very rewarding in terms of the quality of the support that you get. And I think it's from these small steps that often we differentiate ourselves as a leader in the market.
Right.
So,
and how do you think Ovion would have proceeded, let's say, in case there was no ACS to improve collection efficiency in cyclones? Would, let's say, Ovion will challenge other companies to develop such a product? Well, you already answered a little bit, so the flexibility perhaps is not there, but perhaps sponsor a research group from the university or do applied research on cyclone, or maybe do it fully in-house. Do you think it was a possibility? It would be a possibility?
It would, but I think it's not our core purpose, the development of equipment parts. So we would be diverting our attention to something that is not necessarily our core, and therefore it would be somehow a waste of internal resources. Right. But I think what would have happened, as it still happens in many areas when we don't have the best, we choose to have the second best, and very often suboptimal processes. So in some specific case, and I can remember one particular program, we actually avoid completely the cyclone and we collect in a different system. So, but that is not very common. It's not very common that you can do that. But I think most likely, Pedro, we would have been with the second best in the market, because that was a need. We saw that the standard offering in our spray dryers was not sufficiently good, and probably all of us would be losing a little bit more. So the patients would have less drag, we would have processes with lower yields, and ACS probably would not exist, or at least to the size you have today.
Yeah, more generally, so I see perhaps most of Ovion's research is done in-house, let's say, and by even incorporating science, scientists, students that become scientists. What type of applied research is done within, let's say, more within the universities, and in which fields of study? So which alternatives has Ovion explored for each type of field study, let's say more process applied, as you told already, and perhaps more basic or fundamental research?
We've been betting mostly on applied research. So our scientists, most of the ideas for research projects come from our scientists that during their daily work, they are prevented to go to the depths of knowledge that they wish in certain areas. So they have the ability then to apply for a program, either a master's student or a PhD work, to actually understand that deeper, most fundamental knowledge, but is a knowledge that is very quickly brought up to the development part. So that's why we call it a very applied research. I think we are growing now to a maturity level where we believe that we need also to fund completely disruptive innovation. So instead of being such a focus on our strategic level, let's say the universities and the research institutions come up with the topics, explore those topics, and then we'll have to see whether there is a place for us there. So the balance between adjacent research to what we do and the disruptive, more disruptive research is an important one. And I don't think you can do it just with one.
Yeah. And also a general question, what is your general view now, let's say, of the collaboration between companies and with strong R&D, such as Ovion, and the university? So have you seen changes throughout the years from both parties? And what are still the main difficulties? And which party perhaps has evolved more than the other? And finally, also related with this, what is the role of IP protection and valuation from each side in this equation?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. So what I see, it's both the industry and the academia are more open for collaboration over time. I think they saw that as a key to innovation, as a key of differentiation. I think our academia is one level up when we compare with our industry, which is probably as it should be. But then there is side effects that are very sad, like a lot of talent actually going abroad because they couldn't find work in our industry. The biggest change I've noticed, I think, was in the universities and research academia in general. I think in the last 10 years, even the most traditional universities open very, very much to collaborations with industry, which was the model, for example, that existed already in the UK or in the US or in other countries throughout the world, where innovation is really at the core.
Right.
I think our industry probably have not explored fully the value that comes from the academia. So in that sense, I think there was greater progress in the academia.
Yeah,
I think. Sorry,
Philip. Finish, please.
No, just to cover your other topics. So I think it needs to be a win-win situation, a win-win collaboration. IP is an important aspect. So the terms of IP in these collaborations are very important. I think industry really survives in many fields by having robust intellectual property. But in saying that, it's not, I do not defend a situation where all the entire rights of the IP are actually on one side.
Right.
And in most collaborations that we've been signing with institutions, there is IP terms that provide a share of the value of the IP to the institution and a share to the company.
Right. Well, my last question before we open the discussion, another group of questions. Why do you think the country, and especially I would say related with what you've said, and especially the private sector, invests so little in R&D? And how can this gap be overcome? And how can companies start benefiting more to incorporate so much talent that exists today in the academia? Do you see programs as Phil Prime, of course, create this stronger links between companies and in universities? And also, what lessons can Ovion provide, let's say, to companies that want to invest more in R&D and make the difference in the world?
Well, I think events like these are good in the sense that they create awareness of some very successful collaborations. And hopefully these inspire others to look for these collaborations. I think there should be also stimulus for this collaboration between the academia and the companies, either through government tax relief purposes. But I think it's not just a matter of money as well. Is the ability to link the local industry and the needs of the local industry with the capabilities of the academia, very often of the local academia as well, and this mutual understanding of needs and capabilities, I think, is missing very often. So it needs to be more communicated, more disseminated.
Yeah, definitely, because we see, and you told me the other day, you see that, you see all these talents, and sometimes the industries are not elaborated or perhaps sophisticated enough to absorb this talent, and this expertise. Well, not expertise, but at least talent and intelligence, knowledge from the universities. And it's very sad that still this gap exists. So how to promote more and to make this gap be shorter, and I think perhaps some questions and some comments may come from the audience for that.
Very good.
Okay, well, thank you, Filipe and Pedro, for the high-level discussion you have just had. But now it's time to open the question to the audience. So I will ask those attending on the YouTube channel to use the chat. Those that are on the Zoom can raise their hand. But, well, I have here already 2 questions from the audience. Well, the first one is, it's to Pedro. And is, the question is, do you also rely on commercial software for optimization for CFD, or, for example, focus normally for faster time to market?
Well, we have our own, let's say, software, our own tool for optimization, and it's not CFD, so it's a numerical optimizer that we developed in-house. Of course, Romualdo can comment more on that. We use CFD and some software on the market to optimize local problems in cyclones. Let's say if we want to understand how cyclones are handling abrasion, for example, or what is happening with the particles at the exit of the cyclone. And there we zoom in and we rely on CFD to do that, but not for the optimization of the whole cyclone, which is made up of 8 independent dimensions, and which other tools we find at least that they are better to reach those levels. So yes, we use, but for these particular subjects.
Okay, thank you. There's another question now to Filipe Gaspar, and it's from André Diaz. And the question is, how many PhD not trained at Ovion are working at the company? And also, if you have any advice for anyone applying to Ovion.
Well, so PhDs that were trained during this Ovion research program is still a limited number. So I've shown in one of the graphs, probably I skip it too fast, but from all the PhDs that we have concluded so far, which I think is around 15, and there are another 15 that are still ongoing at different stages. And from those 15, we got nine people working with us. So it's still a small proportion of the overall number of PhDs that we have in the company, or even just, for example, my R&D department. So it's still a small proportion, yes. For an application, I think I would suggest to visit our website where the openings are described. But if there isn't a specific opening, I would advise to do a spontaneous application directed to the director of HR of Portugal, or even to me, and I can then forward. That is also an alternative.
Okay, well, thank you, Filipe. Now, well, we have a question from Adélio Mendes. I think we can use the Zoom for the question.
Thank you for the nice presentations, and I'd like to give a word that this initiative is very helpful for improving the collaboration. I think between the universities and companies. I also do agree with Filipe on that. I have one question that I'd like to ask. Ovion has been offering to host master students for their dissertations, but still some legal difficulties around this collaboration. So I want to challenge both parties to arrive to the point that they will turn this possible, because it will be great for our students, I guess, and also for Ovion, because we are preparing really good students. It will be good for both parties if we arrive to an agreement and we overcome the legal issues. I'm sure there are some difficulties and difficult questions to be answered, but with goodwill, I believe will be possible to overcome. So that's more a comment than a question, sorry. Okay.
No, but you have my commitment, Adélio, and we've been collaborating with Philip in a different type of programs, as you know, but in terms of this Ovion research program, to my knowledge, we have not been able to agree on what we call an umbrella contract, and that is very important. And we've been able to sign with most companies, with most universities in Portugal. So I'm sure that there must be a solution also with Philip. So.
Okay. I would like to challenge. I know that there are some people attending from the university that can help on that. So I really want to challenge you to, and I will offer my help also to try to reach an agreement.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, I think we have time for one final question. Well,
Fernando Pereira?
I can, but Romualdo, you want to say something?
Yes, but I don't know where is my hand symbol in the...
Well, it is in the participants part, but it's okay. So, Romualdo, please, you can now put your question.
Raise hand. Oh, okay.
Yes, you can start.
Okay. I have, it's not really a question, it's a comment on some Andre Diaz, I think, asked if we used optimization software of commercial type, and Pedro answered that no, it was of our own development during many years that I was there a teacher, like you know. And it is exactly the same software that is available for the students on the application CMOP. It's exactly the same software, and it's very powerful nonlinear optimizers that search for the global optimum. So that's just one comment. I have one comment also to Filipe, if I may say so. I learned a lot with Ovion, especially on the first cyclone that was ordered, because Filipe told me, you know what we have to do if your cyclone does not work as you tell it will. You have to take your cyclone out and give us back all the money we paid you. So actually that was a lesson for me, because I understood very early that in industry, we simply cannot afford to fail, because there are many issues at hand, and money losses and all that. So we have to really do the things the right way. So thank you for that, Filipe.
Yeah, and actually, one of Ovion's, let's say, statements is, well, do it right the first time. So
Yeah.
I learned also from that from 10 years ago.
Okay, thank you very much. Very nice presentations.
Okay, I think I have a short question for both guests, and my question is, what do you think that is best to cultivate? Is to cultivate institutions or the individuals? The idea is, if we rely on one off project with a specific researcher, or it would be better to have established link with an institution with access with the research relationship. What do you think about that? The idea is about comparing what I'm saying, to cultivate an institution relationship or only individual relationship.
Well, I can start perhaps. I think, and this goes back to my last comment, and goes back to this program we participated in, which is called Co-High-Tech. But my statement, perhaps the most important one, is for both parties to understand again the academia and the companies that actually there is a gap. So there is a gap to be filled in many ways. Of course, there is a gap to be filled between how institutions and so companies in the institutes collaborate. That a lot has been done in some, how the IP is now shared, and not only for the companies and not only for the academia. So these sorts of things, I think, have been going on and are better than before. But still there is this gap, and I think a gap can be, and this motivation can be sent to the students, because the students in Portugal, I think, they need, I think they have to look at different possibilities, and the gap is a problem, because how to actually for example, look at technologies that are in the universities and transform them into products. This is difficult, very difficult to do, and there is a gap of capital, there is a gap of knowledge, there is a gap of credibility. And so I think programs that that are tools, important tools that can give this credibility, bring capital to students, or young people that want to build up companies. I think any tool that can fill up this gap and accelerate the way these technologies that are in the universities become actually products is perfect, because companies like Ovion, they cannot afford to be in all lines of investigation. So there needs to be more ACSs and more companies building products, specializing in products that come from knowledge, and knowledge is in the universities. So any tool that can bring the best people, motivate them, and also for people to gain this credibility and build up companies. I think this is what we see more in other countries, like especially I would say in Europe, Germany, where these young companies are built up, but related with specific scientific areas, and not only, as we see a lot in Portugal, which are more service-based companies. So anything that can do that, and I think in the individual is very important, because we need to motivate the best people not to go, perhaps not all of them, to go to the Accentures and McKinseys and so on, and build up companies based on scientific knowledge. So anything that can be done there, I think is very important.
Thank you.
And Fernando, I'll probably answer through a different angle that question. I think when we look at the competencies and capabilities, what puts two items together are the competence of institutions, right? The needs and the competencies. But they rely very much on individual contributions. So those institutions are very often close to each other, because there are very close links, very close collaborations, very high respect for people in both sides of the institutions. And in my experience, while I like to look at different companies and institutions as preferred partners, and because they have competences or they complement very well what we do, when we lose the references on the people where we've established those relationships, that partnership suddenly becomes much weaker. So you need both. You need as an institution to show a broad competence that is not relying in a single individual, but then you need the people that can actually reach out to the other side of the organization and create these relationships of trust and respect, like I have for Salcedo or Pedro or Adélio. And these are my references, let's say, in this particular, when we speak about FILP, or when we speak about ACS. So it's a confusing answer, but I think we are all individual people. Our relationships are very individual. So I hope this was helpful.
Yeah. Yes, I think we need a balance in this kind of situation. Well, I think it's time to close this webinar. Allow me to do a short overview of this, what we have discussed. I think that we can say that both industry and academia will benefit from a long-term cooperation. Companies will gain greater access to cutting-edge research and the scientific talent, which is available on the university side. Universities will gain access to, financial support and partners for applied research. But I think that, and most importantly, society will also benefit from this cooperation, because it will allow to achieve what were previously unimaginable advances that will certainly improve everyone's life. I hope that you have enjoyed as much as I did to participate in this webinar, in which our two distinguished guests have clearly and comprehensively shared with us their vision and experience on collaborative research. I finish by thanking again Filipe Gaspar and Pedro Araujo and all the attendees of this webinar. So, have a great socially distant day, and stay healthy and safe. And good afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.